You will never leave me. Blood dripped from Kyungmin's split lip onto Jesse's shoulder as his tattooed hand wrapped around her throat, pinning her against the marble pillar. She just slapped him. Hard enough to draw blood. Watch me, she hissed. His control snapped. His mouth crashed into hers. Violent, desperate. 3 months of denial finally exploding. But here's the twisted part. He'd been watching her long before this. Tracking her from Seoul while she lived in Atlanta. And the marriage? Her signature was forged. If you believe women shouldn't be treated like property, hit that subscribe button on Ebony and Pearl Stories right now. Only controlling manipulators won't subscribe. The marble pillar cracked under Jesse's spine as Kyungmin slammed her against it, his inked arm braced beside her head, the other gripping her waist hard enough she'd bruise tomorrow. Blood dripped from his split lip onto her collarbone. Yes, she had done that. She'd slapped him hard enough to split skin when he tried to lock her in the penthouse again. You never listen, Kyungmin growled, his free hand sliding up to wrap around her throat, thumb pressing against her racing pulse. I told you not to leave. I told you they're watching. And I told you, she hissed, arching into his grip just to watch his eyes darken, just to prove her point, that I'm not your prisoner. His tattooed fingers tightened. Not enough to hurt, enough to own. The dragons inked across his chest seemed to move with every breath, coiling tighter. You're my wife. Same thing, isn't it? She whispered. He spun her around, pressing her face first against the cold marble. His bare chest crushed against her back, his breath scorching her ear. The silk robe she wore slipped off one shoulder, exposing skin he couldn't stop staring at. Glass from their fight crunched under his feet. You want to leave so badly? His voice dropped to something lethal. Walk out that door. See how long you survive without me. 3 months of marriage. 3 months of this violent dance where they circled each other like wounded animals, wanting to destroy each other, wanting to consume each other, never crossing the line that would detonate everything. I should let you go, he whispered, his lips brushing the shell of her ear. Let you see what the world does to women who think they don't need protection. Then do it. She turned her head, her mouth inches from his. Let me go. Her hand reached back, fingers tangling in his hair, pulling him closer. Or keep me. But make a choice, dear Mafia husband, because I'm tired of this game. You will never leave me, he snarled. Watch me, she breathed. His control shattered like the glass scattered across their floor. Now, let's rewind 3 months. Before the marriage. Before the bloodshed. Before the moment Jesse Kinzer learned what a man like Bae Kyung-min becomes when the woman he's claimed tries to walk away. The conference room in Atlanta smelled like expensive coffee and corporate lies. Jesse Kinzer sat across from her boss, Malcolm Chen, watching him avoid her eyes for the 4th time in 10 minutes. Her laptop bag sat heavy on her lap. She'd come straight from debugging a security breach, the 3rd one this month that wasn't her fault but would somehow end up on her record anyway. Pack your things, Malcolm finally said. You're going to Seoul. Tomorrow. Jesse laughed. Actually laughed. Seoul? I have the Morrison account presentation on Friday. I can't just. The presentation is cancelled. Everything's cancelled. He slid a folder across the polished oak table. Bae Industries is acquiring our cybersecurity division. They want you specifically. It's a strategic partnership. Strategic partnership. The words tasted wrong in her mouth even before she opened the folder. Her life had been a disaster for 8 months. A broken engagement to a man who chose his career over her. A mother drowning in medical debt she couldn't pay. A corporate scandal she'd witnessed but couldn't prove. One that had her name circling in whispers she couldn't escape. Seoul felt like running away. Seoul felt like a chance to breathe. How long? She asked. Permanent relocation. Housing provided. Salary tripled. Malcolm's fingers drummed the table. They're very generous. Generous. Another wrong word. 24 hours later, Jessie stood in a penthouse office overlooking Seoul's glittering skyline, her contract spread across a desk that cost more than her car. Sign here. The lawyer, a woman in a suit sharp enough to cut, pointed to a line at the bottom. And here. And here. Jessie skimmed the pages. Employment terms. Non-disclosure agreements. Benefits package. Everything looked standard until she reached page 17. Marriage clause. Her blood turned to ice. What the hell is this? The lawyer's expression didn't change. Mr. Bay requires a legal union to facilitate your work visa and security clearance. It's a formality. You'll receive additional compensation. This is insane. Jessie stood, the chair scraping violently. I'm not marrying someone I've never met for a job. You already did. The lawyer pulled out another document. Jessie's signature, perfect, forged, legal. Already decorated the bottom of a marriage license dated 3 days ago. How? Your company provided the necessary documentation. Everything is legal under both Korean and American law. The wedding is scheduled for Saturday. 2 days from now. The lawyer closed her briefcase with a crisp snap. Mr. Bay will see you then. Jessie wanted to scream. Wanted to run. Wanted to call a lawyer, the police, the American embassy. But her mother's medical bills sat in her email inbox. The corporate scandal had blacklisted her from every tech company in Atlanta. And Malcolm had made it very clear. Refuse this, and she be terminated with cause. No severance. No references. Nothing. They'd trapped her perfectly. The wedding happened in a private hall with 500 guests she didn't know. Jessie walked down an aisle covered in white roses toward a man she'd never seen in person. Bae Kyung-min stood at the altar in a black suit tailored so precisely it looked painted on. Even from a distance, she could see the tattoos peeking from his collar, snaking up his neck. He was devastating. Cold. Beautiful in the way a blade is beautiful. Something that could kill you while you admired it. When she reached him, he didn't smile. Didn't take her hand. Just looked at her with those dark, unreadable eyes like he was calculating her worth down to the dollar. The officiant spoke in Korean. Jessie understood none of it. When they were told to kiss, Kyung-min's lips barely brushed hers, a touch so brief she wasn't sure it happened. His mouth was cold. His eyes were colder. At the reception, while 500 strangers celebrated a transaction disguised as love, he leaned close enough that she could smell his cologne. Something expensive that made her stomach flip traitorously despite her fury. Let me be clear about our arrangement, Mrs. Bay. His English was perfect. His accent barely noticeable. You'll live in my home. You'll attend events as required. You'll play the part of my wife in public. He paused, his gaze sliding over her like she was a problem to solve. In private, you stay out of my way. I won't touch you. You won't warm my bed. Understood. The dismissal in his voice made her burn hotter than shame. Crystal clear. Jessie smiled sweetly, venomously. Though I should warn you, I don't follow orders well. Something flickered in his expression. Almost amusement. Almost anger. You'll follow mine. We'll see about that. 3 months later. Try me, Jessie breathed against the marble pillar, her body trembling with rage and something far more dangerous. Kyung-min's eyes went black. His control, carefully maintained for 3 months of cold distance and unspoken tension, finally snapped. His hand slid from her throat to cup her face. His thumb brushed across her bottom lip. The dragons tattooed across his chest expanded with every ragged breath. You have no idea what you're asking for, he whispered. Then show me. His mouth hovered over hers, close enough she could taste his breath, feel his restraint crumbling like sand. And just when the air between them ignited. If you can't stand men who think they can control women like Kyung-min, drop a comment telling me what time you're watching this. Hit subscribe to Ebony and Pearl Stories if you believe Jessie should fight back. Only manipulators and control freaks won't. His mouth hovered over hers, close enough she could taste his breath, feel his restraint crumbling like sand. Then his phone rang. Kyung-min pulled back like she'd burned him, jaw clenched so hard she heard his teeth grind. He answered in rapid Korean, his eyes never leaving hers, promising this wasn't over. When he finally walked away, Jessie's legs nearly gave out. 3 months. 3 months of this Cold War, and she just declared open warfare. The penthouse became their battlefield. Jessie refused to be the ghost wife he expected. She claimed space he didn't give permission for, working in the living room wearing silk robes that clung to every curve, her laptop balanced on her thighs. She moved his perfectly arranged books, played music while he took business calls, walked through the apartment like she owned it, because legally, she did. Kyung-min retaliated silently. She'd find doors locked that weren't locked before. Her passwords frozen on systems she needed for work. And always, she felt his eyes on her, watching through the glass walls of his study like a predator tracking prey. He never spoke unless necessary. Never touched her. but the tension between them built like a storm waiting to break. One evening, Jessie sat cross-legged on the couch, wearing nothing but a black silk robe and reading contracts on her laptop. She felt him before she saw him, that electric awareness that made her skin prickle. Kyung-min stood in the doorway of his study, dress shirt rolled to his elbows, tattoos dark against his skin. He stared at her legs, at the way the robe had ridden up her thighs. She didn't adjust it. His fists clenched. Then he disappeared back into his study, the door closing with carefully controlled force. Jessie smiled. The discovery happened on a Tuesday. Jessie had been digging through Bay Industries' encrypted servers, not for corporate espionage, but to prove a point. He didn't own her. Couldn't control her. She'd find something, anything, to use as leverage. What she found made her blood turn to ice. Kinzer. Helen. Threat level. Critical. Her mother's name. Her mother's address. Her mother's medical records. And beneath it, bounty. $2 million. Zhao Syndicate. Jessie's hands shook as she clicked through the files. Her mother had been a target for 6 months. A rival syndicate had wanted leverage over Bay Industries' cybersecurity operations. Jessie was the key to accessing systems they couldn't breach. The marriage wasn't about alliance. It was about ownership. About neutralizing a threat before someone else weaponized it. Kyung-min had married her to control the situation. To make sure no one could touch her mother. To claim Jessie before she became someone else's bargaining chip. She wasn't chosen. She was claimed like territory. Jessie found him in his study at midnight, standing at the window overlooking Seoul's glittering skyline. "Why didn't you tell me?" Her voice cut through the silence like a blade. He didn't turn around. "You didn't need to know. My mother had a bounty on her head. I didn't need to know." She stepped closer, fury making her reckless. "You married me to control a threat. To own the problem before someone else did." "Yes." His answer was simple. Cold. "You're not my keeper." Finally, he turned. His eyes were darker than she'd ever seen them. "I am now." "That's not how this works." "That's exactly how this works." He moved toward her, each step deliberate. "You think you're trapped? You were dead the moment they noticed you. Your mother was dead. I gave you both a chance to survive. By making me your property?" His jaw flexed. "By making you untouchable." Jessie wanted to slap him again. Wanted to scream. But something in his expression stopped her. Something raw beneath the ice. "You could have told me," she said quietly. "And you would have run." His fists trembled at his sides. "You would have tried to save her yourself and gotten killed." He walked past her, shoulders rigid with control barely maintained. The door to his bedroom closed with a soft click. After that night, Jessie's rebellions became deliberate. She started wearing his shirts, white button-downs that hit mid-thigh, nothing underneath. Started doing yoga in the living room in sports bras and shorts that left nothing to imagination. Started applying lotion to her legs while he worked, the sound of her hands sliding over skin the only noise in the silent apartment. Kyung-min's control frayed visibly. His eyes tracked her thighs when she crossed her legs. His fists clenched white when she bent over. His breath hitched when she walked past wearing robes that slipped off her shoulder. One evening, she found him in the kitchen, pouring whiskey with shaking hands. "You test me because you want me to break," he said without looking at her. Jessie stepped closer, her robe sliding down one shoulder. "And you don't." His eyes dragged over her exposed skin like a physical touch. "Jessie, you married me to protect me." She moved until she was close enough to feel his heat. "But who's protecting you from me?" His glass hit the counter hard enough to crack. He walked away, disappearing into his room like she was the danger. That night, Jessie lay in bed pretending to sleep. At 2 a.m., her door opened. Kyung-min stood in the doorway, shirtless, tattoos dark against his skin in the moonlight. He didn't move. Didn't speak. Just stood there watching her breathe, his chest rising and falling unevenly. Jessie kept her eyes closed, her heart hammering so loud she was sure he could hear it. 10 minutes passed. She heard his sharp intake of breath. Heard him whisper something in Korean that sounded like a curse and a prayer combined. Then the door closed. Through the wall, she heard his shower turn on. Heard the groan that followed, low and broken and full of her name. Jessie pressed her thighs together, heat pooling low in her belly. He wanted her. He wanted her so badly it was destroying him. And she was done pretending she didn't want him back. If you can't stand men who think marriage means ownership, comment, "Women aren't property right now." Subscribe to Ebony and Pearl Stories if you believe Jesse deserves the truth. Only liars and manipulators won't. The next morning, Jessie woke to voices. Korean. Sharp. Angry. She crept to her door, opening it just enough to hear Kyung-min in his study, phone pressed to his ear. His lieutenant, she recognized the voice from previous calls, was speaking rapid fire. Then Kyung-min cut him off, his voice lethal. "I've been watching her since Atlanta." Jessie's blood turned cold. "She was a target before she knew my name," he continued in English, probably for her file's sake. "You think I let them get within a mile of her? I tracked every movement. Every coffee shop. Every late night at the office. Every—" He stopped himself, exhaling hard. She was mine to protect before she ever stepped foot in Seoul. The call ended. Jessie stood frozen outside his door, her heart hammering. He hadn't just married her. He'd been watching her, tracking her, obsessing over her for months before they ever met. Before she even knew his name. That night, Jessie dressed for war. A black silk dress with a neckline that plunged dangerously low and a slit that climbed to her hip. Heels that made her legs look endless. Hair wild and loose around her shoulders. She was going out. Anywhere, everywhere, just to prove she could. She made it 3 steps toward the door before Kyung-min appeared. "You're not leaving dressed like that." His voice was quiet. Dangerous. "Watch me." She tried to push past him. He blocked her path, his body a wall. "Jessie." "What?" She looked up at him, defiant. "Afraid someone might look at your wife? Might want what you won't even touch." His jaw clenched. His eyes dragged down her body, the exposed skin, the curves barely contained by silk. "You know exactly what you're doing. Then stop staring at me like that." She stepped closer, close enough to feel his heat. "Like you're starving. Like you want to rip this dress off with your teeth." His fists clenched. "Go change." "No. Jessie." "You don't own me, Kyung-min." She grabbed her clutch from the side table. "You don't get to decide what I wear or where I go." Something cracked in his expression, fury mixing with something raw and desperate. But he stepped aside. She walked past him, her heart pounding. She made it to the elevator before she realized her hands were shaking. Jessie came home at midnight to find the penthouse dark. She kicked off her heels, the marble cool under her feet. She'd walked around Seoul for hours, too angry to actually go anywhere, too stubborn to come home early. Her body ached. Her heart ached more. She stripped off the dress in her room, tossing it onto the bed. Then she grabbed the first thing her hand touched. Kyung-min's white button-down shirt hanging in her closet from the last time she'd stolen it. She pulled it on, buttoning just enough to cover what needed covering. The fabric smelled like him, that expensive cologne that made her stomach flip. She padded to the kitchen for water, her curls loose and wild around her shoulders. Kyung-min was standing at the counter, shirtless, tattoos dark against his skin, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He looked up. His eyes went black. "Jessie." His voice cracked. "Put something on." "No." She moved closer, the shirt riding up her thighs. "I'm comfortable." His knuckles went white around the glass. "You're testing me. Make me stop." She stopped directly in front of him, close enough that the shirt brushed his bare stomach. "Make me put something else on." His breathing turned ragged. His tattoos flexed with every inhale. "You don't know what you're asking for." "I know exactly what I'm asking for." Her hand pressed against his chest, feeling his heart hammer beneath ink and muscle. "The question is, are you brave enough to take it?" He grabbed her wrist, his grip iron. "Jessie, you've been watching me since Atlanta." The words came out quiet. "Lethal. Tracking me. Obsessing over me. Months before we met." His eyes widened fractionally. "Did you think I wouldn't find out?" She twisted her wrist free, stepping back. "Did you think I wouldn't realize you didn't just marry me? You claimed me? Mocked me as yours before I even knew you existed?" He said nothing. But his silence confirmed everything. "You're not my protector, Kyung-min." She turned away. "You're my cage." 2 days later, Jessie made her decision. She packed a bag in silence. Clothes, laptop, passport. She'd stored emergency money in her laptop case. She'd researched flights. She'd planned her escape down to the minute. She made it to the front door at 3 a.m. Kyung-min was standing there, fully dressed, arms crossed, eyes colder than she'd ever seen them. Going somewhere, wife? Jesse's heart dropped. Move. No. Kyung-min. I said you will never leave me. His voice was quiet, deadly. Did you think I was joking? You don't own me. She dropped the bag, fury overriding fear. I'm not your prisoner. I'm not your property. I'm not. You're my responsibility. He moved closer, each step deliberate. You're my wife. You're under my protection whether you like it or not. I don't need your protection. You need it more than you know. His control was fracturing. She could see it in the tremor of his fists, the tension in his jaw. They're still watching. Still waiting. The moment you step outside that door without me, you're dead. Then let me die. The words tore out of her. Let me die free instead of caged. No. His voice broke on the word. Jesse shoved him. Hard. He barely moved. She shoved him again, tears burning her eyes. I hate you. I hate that you tracked me. I hate that you married me without asking. I hate that you won't even. He grabbed her wrists, pulling her against him. Won't what? Won't touch me. She looked up, chest heaving. Won't admit you want me. Won't stop pretending you don't think about me every second of every day. You want me to admit it? His grip tightened. Fine. I think about you constantly. I think about you when I'm working. When I'm showering. When I'm trying to sleep. You've invaded every part of my mind and I can't make it stop. Then why? Because if I touch you, I won't stop. His voice dropped to something raw. I'll claim every inch of you. I'll ruin you for any other man. I'll become exactly what you accused me of being. Maybe I want to be ruined. She slapped him. Hard enough his head snapped to the side. Hard enough his lips split open. Blood dripped down his chin. For a heartbeat, neither of them moved. Then Kyung-min slammed her against the wall, one hand beside her head, the other gripping her waist hard enough to bruise. His chest heaved against hers. Blood stained his mouth. His eyes were feral. Stop pretending you don't want me, Jesse whispered. His control shattered. His mouth crashed toward hers. Comment, nobody owns me. If you believe Jesse should fight back. Subscribe to Ebony and Pearl Stories if you can't stand controlling men like Kyung-min. Only toxic manipulators won't. His mouth crashed into hers like a man drowning, like she was the last breath of air in the world. The kiss was violent, desperate. 3 months of denial combusting into pure hunger. Jesse gasped against his lips and he devoured the sound. His tongue sliding against hers with bruising intensity. She tasted his blood, metallic and warm, and bit his already split lip harder just to hear him groan. His hands were everywhere, tangling in her hair, gripping her waist, sliding down to lift her effortlessly, her legs wrapping around him on instinct. Kyung-min. His name came out broken. Shut up, he growled against her mouth, pressing her harder against the wall. His tattoos flexed as he held her, dragons coiling across his arms like they were alive. Just shut up and let me. She pulled his hair hard enough to make him hiss, tilting his head back so she could kiss down his jaw, his throat, tasting salt and fury. You want me, she whispered against his skin. Say it. I want you. The confession tore out of him raw and jagged. God, I want you so much it's killing me. She kissed him again, softer this time, feeling him tremble, feeling 3 months of walls crumbling between them. You're scared, she breathed against his lips. He froze. You're terrified, she continued, her hands cupping his face, thumbs brushing his cheekbones. That's why you won't let yourself have this. His control shattered completely. I'm scared of losing you. The words ripped out of him like confession and curse combined. His forehead pressed against hers, breath ragged. You're the only weakness I have, Jesse. The only thing that could destroy me. His voice dropped to something broken. And the only thing I'd kill for. Her breath stuttered. I've killed for you already, he whispered. People who got too close. People who asked too many questions. I've had blood on my hands because of you since Atlanta, and you didn't even know I existed. Kyung-min. His mouth found hers again, softer now, almost reverent. like he was memorizing the taste of her. You want to leave? Fine. But you'll be leaving me in pieces. Jessie's heart cracked open. She was about to respond when, crash, glass exploded inward. The penthouse windows shattered in a hail of bullets, spraying shards across marble floors. Jessie screamed. Kyung-min threw her behind the couch, his body covering hers completely. Stay down. What? Stay down. More gunfire. Tactical. Precise. Professional. Through the chaos, Jessie heard Korean shouting. Heard footsteps. Heard Kyung-min's voice drop to something cold and lethal as he reached under the couch and pulled out a gun she didn't know was there. He stood, completely exposed, and fired 3 shots in rapid succession. 3 bodies dropped. Jessie watched from behind the couch, her hands pressed over her mouth, as Kyung-min moved through the penthouse like death incarnate. No wasted movements. No hesitation. Just brutal, terrifying efficiency. Another intruder came through the shattered window. Kyung-min didn't use the gun. He broke the man's neck with his bare hands. The apartment fell silent except for their breathing. Kyung-min stood in the center of the wreckage, shirtless, tattooed, covered in blood that wasn't his. His chest heaved. His eyes scanned for more threats. Then he looked at her. Are you hurt? His voice was surprisingly gentle. Jessie shook her head, unable to speak. He crossed to her in 3 strides, pulling her up and into his arms. His hands roamed over her body, checking for injuries, for blood, for any sign she'd been hit. I'm okay, she finally managed. I'm okay. His forehead dropped to her shoulder. They found you. Who? Zhao Syndicate. His voice was muffled against her skin. They've been waiting for an opening. Waiting for me to slip. He pulled back, cupping her face with blood-stained hands. This is why I can't let you leave. This is why I tracked you. Why I married you. Why I... He stopped, jaw clenching. Jessie covered his hands with hers. Why you what? Why I can't breathe when you're not near me. The confession hung between them like something sacred. Sirens wailed in the distance. His security team would arrive any second. But in this moment, in the wreckage of their penthouse with bodies on the floor and blood on his skin, it was just them. You leave me, you die, he said quietly, desperately. You stay, I protect you. That's the deal. That's always been the deal. Jessie looked up at him, this beautiful, lethal man who'd killed for her, married her, obsessed over her from thousands of miles away. What if I stay because I want to? She whispered. His breath stopped. His eyes searched hers like he was looking for the lie, the trick, the trap. What if I stay because I want you? She continued, her voice stronger now. Not because I'm scared. Not because I'm trapped. But because I... He kissed her. Slow this time. Trembling. His blood-stained hands cradled her face like she was something precious, breakable, holy. When he pulled back, his voice was wrecked. Say it again. I want to stay. Again. I want you, Kyung-min. His control didn't shatter this time. It surrendered. If you believe love shouldn't come with chains, comment, love isn't ownership, below. Subscribe to Ebony and Pearl Stories if you think Jessie deserves to choose for herself. Only controlling monsters won't. Police sirens wailed closer, their red and blue lights painting the destroyed penthouse in violent color. Jessie was shaking. She couldn't stop. Adrenaline and shock coursed through her veins like ice water. Kyung-min pulled her into his arms, careful despite the blood covering his skin. Look at me. His voice was gentle in a way she'd never heard before. Jessie, look at me. She did. You're safe, he said, his thumb brushing her cheek. I won't let anyone touch you. Not ever. Her hand came up to cup his jaw, feeling the tension there, the barely controlled fury still simmering beneath his skin. I'm not running anymore. Something in his expression cracked, relief so profound it looked like pain. I know you think I'm a prisoner, she whispered, her voice steadier now. But I'm not running. Not from this. Not from you. His forehead pressed against hers. Why? Because I was more scared of how I felt about you than I was of you. The confession tumbled out raw and honest. I was terrified of wanting you. Of needing you. Of losing myself completely in someone who could destroy me. She swallowed hard. But I'm done being afraid. Kyung-min's hands trembled as they framed her face. I'm afraid. She blinked. Of what? of claiming you the way I want to. His voice dropped, vulnerable in a way that shattered her. My father, he loved my mother so much it turned into obsession, into control, into something that killed them both. His jaw clenched. I swore I'd never become him. Never let anyone close enough to turn me into that. Kyung Min. But then you happened. His eyes blazed with something desperate. And I realized I'd already become him the moment I saw you in Atlanta. The moment I decided you were mine before you even knew my name. I'm terrified of what I'd do to keep you, Jesse. What I've already done. She kissed him softly, tasting blood and confession. Then we're both terrified together. His arms wrapped around her, holding her like she was the only thing anchoring him to earth. His security team flooded the penthouse minutes later. Tactical gear, weapons, efficient and deadly. They removed the bodies while Kyung Min's lieutenant briefed him in rapid Korean. Jesse sat wrapped in Kyung Min's jacket, watching him transform. The vulnerable man who'd confessed his fears disappeared, replaced by the cold Mafia air everyone feared. When his team finally left, he came to her. He knelt in front of where she sat, his hands resting on her knees. The dragons tattooed across his arms seemed to coil tighter in the dim light. You will never leave me, he said quietly. But this time, it wasn't a threat. It was a vow. A promise. A plea. Then don't give me a reason to, she replied, her hand sliding into his hair. He kissed her palm, his eyes closing. I'll spend the rest of my life making sure I don't. For the first time since their wedding, Jesse believed him. The call came at dawn. Kyung Min had finally fallen asleep beside her on the couch, neither of them willing to leave the living room, to be apart even for a moment. His arm was draped across her waist, protective even in sleep. His phone buzzed. He answered before the second ring, his voice instantly alert. Talk. Jesse watched his expression turn to stone. He spoke in Korean, his tone lethal, then ended the call with enough force she was surprised the phone didn't shatter. What is it? She asked, sitting up. Kyung Min turned to her, his eyes darker than she'd ever seen them. The Zhao Syndicate issued a direct threat. They're coming for you specifically. They want to take you to force my hand. Fear tried to claw its way up her throat. When? Soon. He cupped her face with both hands, his touch surprisingly gentle despite the violence in his eyes. But they won't get near you. I'll burn their entire organization to the ground before I let them touch one hair on your head. Kyung Min. Let them come, he said, his voice dropping to something cold and deadly. Let them try. They'll learn exactly who my wife is. Jesse's breath caught. And who is she? His thumb brushed across her bottom lip, his eyes burning with possession and promise and something that looked dangerously close to love. Mine, he whispered. Then he kissed her like a man preparing for war, desperate and claiming and absolute. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against hers. You're mine, Jesse Kinzer. And I protect what's mine. I know, she breathed. They're going to learn that the hard way. The sun rose over Seoul, painting the destroyed penthouse in gold light. Bodies had been removed. Glass swept up. But the threat remained. And for the first time since this nightmare began, Jesse wasn't afraid. Because the monster she'd married? He was hers too. If you can't stand syndicates that treat women like bargaining chips, comment, "Women aren't weapons" below. Subscribe to Ebony and Pearl Stories if you believe Jesse deserves to fight back. Only cowards who profit from trafficking and violence won't subscribe. Drop a comment telling me whose side you're on, Jesse's or the Zhao Syndicate's. And hit that subscribe button if you want to see what happens when a mafia boss goes to war for his wife. Because this story is far from over.